A lovely morning and warm welcome to the program Business Today. Kuli Ariyo is my name. For many Nigerians, access to decent and affordable housing remains a critical challenge. The housing challenge is occasioned by the rise in rural-urban migration, which continues to stretch the limited public infrastructure in urban centers. The depth of the challenge is already quite clear. According to the International Human Rights Commission, more than 28 million Nigerians lack access to decent and affordable housing, and this is in tandem with the estimates of the Federal Mortgage Bank of Nigeria, which projects that Nigeria requires at least 28 million housing units to close the housing gap. However, the challenge did not start today. Nigeria's housing deficit has grown progressively from 1 million housing units in 1991 to 12 million in 2007, 14 million in 2010, and subsequently 28 million housing units in 2022. Bridging the housing deficit remains a challenge, and how to resolve it is our focus on the program today. My guest is already here. We'll take a break now. When we come back, we'll eat Grant on the place. Do stay with us. Welcome back. The program is Business Today, and today we're taking a look at closing housing gap in Nigeria, and how we meet in the studio to do justice to this. I have Otumba Mats of Morimbola, an estate surveyor, also held Federal Lands and Housing at the Federal Ministry of Land and Urban Development here in Akure. It's a pleasure to have you on the show today.
Thank you very much, Maria.
Let's take a look of a deficit in Nigeria, 28 million. Is that not surprising and also a cause for concern?
Maria, it's a very big cause for by definition, the housing gap has to do with the difference between the existing housing and the demand for housing. And like you said, it is something that is so much of concern to everybody. The government on its part is doing what it can to see how it can make housing affordable to members. The Constitution makes it very clear. There's something in the Section 43 that talks about the right to immovable property, and I think that has to do with housing. And I'm very happy to be here, and I'm sure we'll be able to.
Let's take a look at those here. In 1991, we have 10 million. In 2007, 12 million. We have also have around 2010, 14 million. Now we're having 28 million housing units deficit.
That's with it. And the fact that we have an increase in population. There's a ratio of 23 to 1,000. We have every 1,000 inhabitants having right to like 23,000 units. And this is far below what is needed. And like I said before, it's really a cause for concern. People continue to, we continue to have population growth, and there's nothing we can really do about it.
Even the projection is at 2050, we're expecting 400 million population. So when we get to that, that means the gap will also be the gap will also be widening. So what we do in the first place to ensure that we'll close the gap?
There is need to make housing affordable. There is need to make housing available, and we are talking about affordable housing now. There is need for government to really put itself together, try to put in some policy statements that can make this achievable. The private sector also has a role to play. The government cannot do this alone. The private sector really has to be brought into this policy.
So what should be the role of the private sector here?
The private sector will come in with their knowledge of managing business, because in this aspect there is something that we always know, that when government handles things on its own, there's this lackadaisical attitude, but the private sector is a more business-oriented institution when it comes to this kind of situation. They can come in and have a kind of tripartite arrangement, whereby you have the government, you have the private sector, and then the bank can also come in. The government can readily make land available. Of course, the banking institutions can also come and finance, then the private sector can coordinate all these activities, and the developer can come in, a businessman, he definitely put his act together because he wants to make money. And then the government can also come with policy statements too, so that at the end of the day you have a synergy.
I think we also look at this policy statement you're talking about as regards the intervention of government. But let's look at what we have in urban cities like Port Harcourt, Abuja, Lagos. We also see that we have MMO's intervention from the private sector. All of them will have this real estate also coming up in these places. What would you say is also responsible for this?
Like I said, urbanization is also a key factor. People are moving from rural areas to urban areas, and then we must understand that land is a commodity that is limited. It's limited in supply, and by the time you have more people in these cities, and there's need to make housing affordable for them, we're still talking about this housing gap, and that is why the private sector has to come in.
What I'm saying is that we see much of the private sector coming in these cities that are mentioned, in Lagos and Abuja and Port Harcourt, unlike places like Ondo State, Ekiti, and Osun.
The issue there, the way I see it, is that these are cities where the private investor sees a way of making more money. Like I said before, the private man wants to maximize profits. He believes he can make more money in these cities. There's no way you can begin to compare Port Harcourt to places like Ondo State. And then there's also the issue of culture. Because what I have experienced in my line as a senior officer of the housing ministry, that most of our housing estates in some states, like Ondo State now, we have situations where the people of the state don't really want to key into it because of one major factor. They want to be buried within their property premises when they die. And this cannot happen within a government housing estate. So this is something that government also has to look inside. And I like I said before, urbanization has made the private sector to prefer some cities when it comes to bringing in housing estates. I think that is what happened.
I don't think there's also the need for government, because governments will need to also do that to provide infrastructure in neighboring communities that are also very close to the city because of this rural-urban migration, which is also having a telling effect on facilities, infrastructure at the capital.
You have a point there, Mario. Like we have a report at the ministry. We have a program we call Site and Services. We have the site, then the services go with development. As we are developing the housing units, we are also talking about infrastructures like road, like electricity power supply, like water supply and salt. So that at the end of the day, the services are there, just that will be needed when the people come into the housing. So it goes together. That is what we have within the
for the private developers, we get infrastructure.
And that is why the ministry will come in now as a kind of supervisory body. They will come and supervise. We have been doing that in most of our estates. We have professionals there. We come, we let them know. It's difficult. Like the power people may not really listen to the private developer. But by the time the ministry officers go there, we have an housing estate here. We want you to supply us with power. They will listen more to us. And I think we have been doing that.
Is it only about, because I'm talking about this gap, closing the gap, only be the developer, the person, but individuals.
Individual also, they have rights to own property. But then, like we all know, fingers are not equal. And then there's the issue of rising cost of building materials, rising cost of acquiring land, rising cost of getting documentations for when you have your land. These are issues that the government also have to look into, because it's not just making land available. We also have to make sure that the common man can be able to afford the cost of the building materials. It's very, very important.
As somebody who also be in terms of also providing housing for Nigerians for a long time now, what do you think could be done to actually close this gap? Because it's also of interest that when you go to cities like Lagos and all of that, you see people living under the bridge.
I know that government is doing its best, but it has not been easy.
Should it even be about government alone?
It should be about government alone. Like private individuals will come in, private investors can also come in, even individuals can come in. But at the end of the day, there's a factor that is very important, which is finance. Government should try and know how to make subsidized finance and loans available. Subsidized finance, housing finance and loan available. Because even at the end of the day, by the time you say you are making housing available for the common man, and then at the end of the day, the prices are going for as high as 20 million, 25 million for a 3-bedroom housing unit. Is that for a common man again, Ariel?
That will not be afforded.
No. So there's really need for government to look into some of these policy statements, because we have people within the ministry that can actually come in and take part in the practical aspect, and they will do it within the limit, within the concept of their job. So there won't be as if we are getting people from outside again and then they are giving them this money. I hope you understand what I'm saying. We have engineers, we have technicians, we have builders, we have people that you can engage when you are constructing these housing units. So that there's a way.
You're talking about direct labor now.
I'm talking about direct labor. And the direct labor is, will I say direct labor? Because you are not paying. People are already being employed within the ministry, and this is their job. It's just like a doctor that goes for ward round. He's already paid. You understand what I'm saying?
I do.
But if you have to get a private consultant to come and do that, you have to get the person.
What about this mindset that if you give anything to government, people in the public sector, you might not get results?
I think that's a mindset. And I think it has to do with the concept of Niger as a whole. But I think everything is changing, and we continue to pray, and we look forward to a better Nigeria, so that at least people can remove that mindset that it is public, it is government, it is this and that.
What about the mortgage system? What has happened to that?
I think the mortgage system is still in existence.
I asked that because I know quite well that developed nations do not have this kind of issues. What they do is to go through the mortgage system to also have their own property. But Nigeria, it looks to me that we are still far away from it.
I will agree with you to an extent, Ariel. And I think the mortgage institutions should really be, I think they can do better. Because it's not every time you have ready cash to do some of these housing transactions. But if you have mortgage facilities, it goes a long way in making some of these things available. And in the process, the housing government.
How should you make it running in Nigeria?
I think that has to do with the management of the mortgage
But somebody who As a professional.
As a professional,
Yeah.
like I said, I believe they can do better. I believe they can do better. I won't really know how they will go about it. It's not really my field, but I believe they can do better. If other countries can now mortgage institutions and then they're doing so fine, I think our own can do. They can do fine too.
So for anybody to actually have a house of his or her own, we'll be looking at the range of 5 million naira. That's a little bungalow for anybody to do that. So sourcing fund for this project might also be a challenge. So how do you think one can go about that?
Like I said earlier, governments can make available subsidized housing loan for people that want to own their own housing. And governments can also make land available at reduced costs. Government can also try and reduce the stress involved in getting documentations for some of these acquisitions. And I don't know, because at our own office, we rely on acquisitions from the state government. If we decide now that we want to have the house in the states, after everything is, we still have to approach them for him or her to make the land available. So I think the governors also have a role to play in this issue. I mean, they should try and make the land available to the common man. If land is there, I think 50% of the challenge is solved.
What about the financial institutions also coming in to ensure also our estate? They also have the power to also be looking at the sector of the economy to also bring money into it.
That's
ensure
the financial.
Yes.
I think they have been coming in. They have been coming in as, should I say, the money bags, but they have not been naming the estates in their name.
Okay.
Yeah. Because in Ondo State now, at least I know like 2,000 or 3,000 estates that the finance has been coming from the financial institution land available.